Hello and welcome to this webinar on audit log analysis for MySQL and MariaDB databases. My name is Sri Nair. I'm the product manager here at Monyog Inc. I appreciate you guys taking the time to attend this webinar. I'll keep this session short and on point to add value to your time. So let's quickly look at the agenda items for this webinar. Firstly, I'm going to quickly run by you the concept of database auditing and its increasing importance due to the regulations such as the General Data Protection Regulation. Second, I will skim through the ways different databases implement auditing. I will also showcase the latest audit feature on a live Monyog demo instance, which we have implemented in Monyog version 8.5.0. In the end, you will receive an update on the Monyog product roadmap, which will be followed by a Q&A session. So please feel free to enter your questions in the chat pod, as we will take the questions based on the order we receive them. Overall, we will be able to wrap this webinar up within 20 minutes. So let's get started. So what is database auditing and why is it important? Database auditing is the tracking of database resources, utilization, and authority, specifically the monitoring and recording of user database actions. Auditing can also be based on a variety of other factors, including individual actions such as the type of SQL statement executed, or on a combination of factors such as username, time, application, and so on. And performing regular database log analysis bolsters your internal security measures by answering questions like who changed your critical data, and when it was changed, and so on. So database auditing also helps you to comply with increasingly demanding compliance requirements. So as we are now talking about the compliance requirements, let's quickly know what is GDPR, which is the General Data Protection Regulation. So on April 2016, the General Data Protection Regulation was adopted by the European Parliament and the Council of the European Union. That will be taking effect starting on May 25th this year. It's a regulation in European Union law governing data protection and privacy for all individuals within the European Union. Also, it introduces numerous security and compliance regulations to all organizations worldwide that process, handle, collect, or maybe store personal information of European Union citizens. This means that organizations that work with personal data will have to elevate the security measures and auditing mechanisms when handling personal identifiable information of European Union citizens. So failing to comply with GDPR standard could result in heavy fines for up to 4% of the offending organization's global revenue. With this in mind, it is crucial for all affected organizations to make sure that they implement adequate log monitoring on their databases as defined by the standard. Having said that, now let's see how different types of databases implement auditing. As you would know, there is no standard or a set standard that defines how a database should implement auditing. So vendors and database administrators differ in their approach. Some, to an extent, employ special tables, while others utilize log files. It's basically their preference. And the two database management systems that we will be looking at here today are MariaDB and MySQL, and how they employ log-based monitoring. And now the obvious question, how do these databases such as MySQL and MariaDB make log auditing possible? Firstly, as far as the MariaDB audit plugin is concerned, prior to MariaDB 5.5.20, in order to record user access, you would have had to employ third-party database solutions to help businesses comply with the internal auditing regulations and those of various regulatory bodies. MariaDB developed the MariaDB Audit plugin, and this plugin can used uh, or maybe it can be used also with MySQL, but that includes some unique features that are available only for MariaDB. So in our MariaDB, the audit plugin logs detailed information for any type of access from users to database servers and tables, including the list of items that you see there from timestamp to error code, which you could refer back later on when we give you the presentation slides. Now, if you have to see the steps to install Audit plugin and understanding the log file entries, those things will be rolled out in a follow-up blog on this webinar, and that, of course, should go live tomorrow. And we will share the link for that at the end. Now, talking about MySQL, MySQL Enterprise Edition includes MySQL Enterprise Audit, implemented using a server plugin named Audit Log. MySQL Enterprise Audit uses the Open MySQL Audit API to enable standard and also policy-based monitoring, which goes to an extent of locking and blocking of connection and query activity executed on a specific MySQL servers. So designed to meet the Oracle audit specifications, MySQL Enterprise Audit provides an out-of-the-box auditing and compliance solution for applications that are governed by both internal and external regulatory guidelines. Also, interestingly, MySQL Enterprise Audit was designed to be transparent at the application layer by allowing you to control the mix of log output buffering and asynchronous or synchronous disk writes to minimize the associated overhead that comes when the audit stream is enabled. So the net result is that depending on the chosen audit stream, log stream options, most applications users will see little to no difference in response times when the audit stream is enabled. And that is, I think, brilliant. Now, while reading the audit log file is great for a quick casual look, it is not the most practical way to monitor database logs. Chances are you will be better off using the syslog option, or better still, taking advantages of tools that report on the audit log or syslogs. There you can process entries to focus on certain type of events of interest. One such tool is Monyog. So the version 8.5.0 introduces audit log analysis for MySQL Enterprise and MariaDB. This feature parses the audit log maintained by the server and displays the content in clear tabular format. And Monyog accesses the audit file log the same way it does for other MySQL log files, including the ones that you're already aware of, like slow query, general query, and error log. So from here, I would quickly like to go to a live demo instance to demonstrate the audit log feature that we have introduced in 8.5.0. So here we are. So we have set up this demo instance, and as you would see, there's a new addition here, which is a new feature called audit log. So it will be tempting to go here and start the monitoring of audit log right away, but the first step that you have to do is to make sure that you enable the audit log option. So once you have added the server, or when you are starting to add a server, you would have an option to go to the advanced options of the configuration. There you would see audit log. Just select that, and you would have to enable this. You will notice that once I enable audit log monitoring on this server, I'll be thrown with errors because there's no audit log plugin installed on this server. So there you go, audit plugin not installed on this server. So you will have to install the audit plugins, and those steps will be in the follow-up blog. Sorry. Now let me just quickly go to the server where we have already configured the audit log. Okay, so here we have enabled the audit log monitoring. We have provided the file path for this particular audit log, and you have different options to read the file from. If you have it on RDS or using our API, you can read that as well. You can also do SFTP, and once that is done, you have you have a successful connection. And then you can go to the audit log feature. Here you can select the server and the time frame for which you want the audit log to be seen from. So then clicking on show audit log fetches the content of the log. However, the limit on the number of rows which can be fetched in one time frame here is 10,000. So the section on the top gives you a quick summary of the audit log in percentages, like failed logins, failed events, schema changes, data changes, stored procedures, and all those things. And all these legends are clickable and shows the corresponding audit log entries. Furthermore, you can use the filter option to fetch log based audit on username. For example, you can just see it here, like different options for filter username that I already said. You can filter by host, operation, database, and table or query. So it's that easy. And there is also an interesting option to export the fetched audit log contents in a CSV format. Just one click and everything will be exported in CSV. Very good tool which is handy to do a focused audit log analysis rather than having a lot of information and using syslog or something to figure out what has been happening. Just one tidy view of everything that helps you save a lot of time. At the same time, it just gets embedded into the things that you are already using. So it's a nice add-on. So this is what we have got here for the audit log. I will encourage you to go and check out how these things are fetching the values for your auditing purposes. Going back in time is very easy. If you have been already using the tool, it's pretty handy, and you can just play around with it. Now, in the interest of the time, I would just quickly like to go to the product roadmap for Monyog. So I will not be inundating you guys with a lot of features that we would be introducing, like perhaps in 6 months or 7 months or maybe a year or so. I would just like to focus on the things that we would be delivering in the next release, because I would like to keep you updated with the latest and the greatest. So the first feature that we will be implementing in the next release is the query profiling information, which will fetch the query profile information from performance schema about the CPU usage, and this feature will also display the query load information for all queries on the query analyzer page. There is already a lot of information that you see in query analyzer page, but this will be a very good add-on to see how much is the CPU usage associated with the particular query. Second is my personal favorite that we have been trying to implement from a longer or extended period of time: auto registration of Galera nodes. So we have an increasing user base or customer base where people are using Galera clusters, and it's kind of painful to go ahead and register every single node in that cluster, because you could have many nodes in a cluster. So this feature will reduce the task of registering individual servers of a single Galera cluster, and it will reduce that activity to a single click to register all the nodes, and you get that whole cluster registered with no frustration, And the third feature that is kind of a support or a compatibility thing, that we would start supporting Docker containers. So Docker Hub helps for broader collaboration and sharing between developers. Previously, it was difficult for users to deploy Monyog through a Docker Hub. So we will be creating a Monyog image and host it on the Docker Hub, which can be used for deploying in a container, and that makes life easy for many of the developers out there. The last and the final feature that will be implemented in the next release is comparison of query performance across 2 time slots. So I would like to explain it with an example. Suppose a user pushes changes to optimize the performance of the query running on your MySQL production server. These changes might not yield the same result. It may even result in performance degradation. So this feature will make it easier to understand the impact of these changes on the query performance, and it has been I mean, this request has been getting hotter every time, so we decided to implement it this time. That brings me to the end of all the agenda we have in this particular webinar. And now I will take 2 minutes to consolidate all the questions that we have been receiving, and we'll start answering them. Okay, I appreciate your patience. So the first question that I see here in the questions box is, what kind of load does audit log put on the server? Well, that's a good question. We do not have any strong evidence, to be really honest, of the load that audit log puts on the MySQL server. But the MySQL documentation says that it has a very minimal, or you can say very negligible load on the server. But it might depend on your environment. So I cannot just say that it will not put any load at all. You would have to try it out yourself. But in our test environment, which was a pretty intense environment, we did not face any issues with load. The second question that I see here is performance impact of audit log and how it compares with general log. Okay, so general query log is a very old feature of MySQL, and it has a much bigger performance impact as compared to audit log. A general query log records much more information about all the queries executing on the server, and is usually used to analyze and improve on all the queries. An audit log was introduced to meet the security compliance of the applications. So general query log, be careful when you turn it on. Audit log, I don't think so. You should be very cautious about the load. Another question that I see here, have you seen any issues running the audit plugin while also running another plugin such as Threadpool plugin? Okay. So I think MySQL supports multiple plugins to be enabled at the same time and should not create any issue in enabling Threadpool plugin and Audit plugin simultaneously. However, I have not done that yet, but I'm pretty sure it's not going to have any issues. Okay. All right. So I think that there are going to be more questions coming in, and then we have already a lot. So all the other questions we are going to follow up by email. We have the emails of all the people who have been asking questions, and I really appreciate the response on our webinars. One last thing that I would like to tell you guys is, where do you go next from here? So we would be putting up a blog on this webinar where we would be rolling out the technicalities of the installation of Audit plugins and how you can start reading the log files and how you could use Monyog in conjunction with those things. So unfortunately, I cannot put all those technical details in this webinar. So we will do a follow-up blog on that, which will be available on blog.monyog.com. There's a free trial, as always, for Monyog. You could download it, check out how this audit log feature works out, at the same time trying to figure out some of the performance issues with other features. The documentation is part of the onboarding, so you should not be really making a note of that, a link. But if you have any issues, either support related, technical related, or sales related, you can write us to sales@webhub.com. So that pretty much brings us to the end of this webinar. And I really appreciate all of you guys joining for this webinar, and we would be coming up with product roadmap update webinar and similar webinars pretty shortly, maybe in 2 to 3 weeks time. So stay tuned. Thank you very much, and you guys have a good day, good night, good evening, and until next time, bye now.